Hey team, welcome back to another incredible episode of the Intentional Agribusiness Leader podcast. This is your host, Mark Jewell, and super excited to go with a different angle with you guys today. It's going to be fun. I've got Sarah from Noble West on with us today, and we're going to talk some marketing. We're going to talk consumer marketing, ag tech marketing, all kinds of things. It's going to be fun, and I'm super excited to have her on the show. Sarah, welcome.
Thanks so much for having me, Mark.
So you get the same question everybody does at the onset of the episode. What does it mean for you to be intentional?
I'm ready. I've spent some time thinking about it. You've had a lot of good answers here. So I think for me, intentionality means a lot of things to different people, right? And I think it is a very personal thing. So, but for me, it's if we think about a slider, visual learner here, we have clarity, care, and urgency. And you have to kind of slide some of those things depending on where you are. But if you've got clarity of thought, focus, you care, whether that is, you have to have like care and passion about what it is and a sense of urgency, because honestly, intention is nothing if it's not having impact or getting it done. Then those are sort of like the three magic things for that for me. And you have to, for me, like whenever I'm indexing across the board on any sort of thing, whether that is, marketing for Noble West on behalf of our produce clients or working with our team on, an initiative that you have to crack, you're sliding different things up and down in there, right? Maybe you're having to say, hey, we have to have some urgency about doing this because there are deadlines, or we have to dial up the clarity on it. I need to be really clear about what I want here. And I think when you combine all those things together and you're making sure that you have like focus on the goals and you're making sure that the trains are moving forward and you're bringing this human side to it and the care, I mean, I think humanity is like one of the biggest things that us as leaders have to be, is like deeply flawed, intentional humans.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. I love the visual of the slider.
Yeah,
I can dial this up or dial this down based on how I
exactly.
want to be, right?
Exactly. Well, it gives you a measure, right? And I think that in marketing, everything's, visual learners. And obviously you have certain aspects of marketing or even leadership or anything that words matter. But I think a little slider kind of helps you think about, I know for me, whenever I'm like vision casting or trying to think about the person I need to be in that room and the role I play, it's like, okay, do I have to nurture? Do I need to be the gasoline in the engine today? Do I need to clarify things? And that's the job I play more often than anything is the clarification piece of it. Because honestly, as leaders, we can't clarify enough. I think that's one of the biggest things that leaders have to really index on is clarity of thought and making sure that everything and teams understand what they're doing. And if you have those things, you can get nearly anything done, I think.
100%. I agree with that. I'm thinking about the other end of the generational spectrum listening to this who might resonate with the idea of a three-legged stool, which is, which
More
is
than
what
tools.
I
There's a
think about
tool, a slider. I like it.
I mean, your younger generation probably understands, visualizes the slider a little bit, right? Because we're a little bit more tech focused. I'm kind of right in the middle of the spectrum, age wise, and then on the other end, we've got like that three-legged stool in the milking parlor, and you've got, but you really do, regardless of which one you go with, you have to have all three
Mm-hmm.
to to create a really intentional recipe, right?
Really.
So big time. I want to come back to clarity in a little bit, but tell us first a little bit about you and Noble West and who you guys are and who you serve.
Yeah. Thanks, Mark. So, as you mentioned, I do not come from a traditional ag background. I was born and raised in Los Angeles. I'm the daughter of an immigrant who came here from China when he was 16. So I come from a very different background than a lot of my, fellow ag colleagues. And, I've channeled all of that resilience and desire to make change into a 15 plus year career in marketing, which some might call a disease that I have. But I like solving problems. And so I've spent 15 years in and out of agencies prior to Noble West, solving problems for travel and tourism, for hospitality, for, shoes and sports teams, and taught me a lot about sort of how to get under, in the head of a consumer or in the head of a client and understand what makes them tick and to, make decisions and make purchases really. Because at the end of the day, all this is always about the bottom line, right? And 5 years ago, found Noble West. I was really lucky to find Allie Cox, our CEO and my partner. And she brought me on to kind of change the future of food. And so Noble West is a marketing agency based in California, also has an office in Boise, Idaho, that specializes in the future of food. And really what we define that as is whether you are a food processor who's launching a new product, or maybe you are an equipment developer who has like a new potato peeling situation that's happening, or you're a commodity board that has to kind of change the reputation of your product. Noble West helps out with all those kinds of problems across the value chain with marketing as our tool.
Very cool. Well, fantastic. Tell us a little bit more about your specific role within the team.
Yes, great question. So I'm a strategist and client services person by trade. So meaning, again, getting in the heads of people and folks and then translating that into strategies. So my entire output is largely centered around decisive choices. So I think, not everyone thinks about themselves as strategic, and I think everyone is a little strategic. In my role as kind of chief strategist for Noble West, a lot of my purview is about making sure that they're not really bad choices. There are some, but there aren't really too many bad choices. The worst choice that any kind of business or brand can make is trying to do all the things. And so much of what I do is trying to bring, again, that clarity to this is the choice we really need to index on. Big swings are the things that yield big results. So sometimes it's a little bit of that care and cheerleader. It's going to be okay. We got to take the big swing. But a lot of times it's the clarity around, look, if we talk about this key feature of the product, or if we talk about this this product as a time saver for mom in this way, those are the things that are going to move the needle business wise for our clients. So while that's probably the most fun part of our job, the other aspects is I work on operations, I work in social, I work in finance, because again, if there's anything I've learned in only my half decade working in ag, is that there's no one that gets to wear one hat. Everyone has to wear 7 or 8. And so I'm trying to follow suit with that, right? And just like have a few different things that I have, my hand in the fire in on.
Yeah, love it. So when you look at this from so what I love about this interview is I get to talk to somebody who's really actually coming at this from a very outside perspective into the ag industry to solve real problems that we have in the industry. So it brings a really fresh perspective.
Yeah.
And in our pre-recording conversation, I was just learning from you as you're talking about like how you think about it, because maybe those of us that have grown up or had our entire career in this space, you sort of can't see the forest for the trees. You lose that sort of fresh outside perspective. That's been really cool. So let's talk a little bit about that, and then I want to move more into the concept around clarity, how we bring clarity from a marketing message standpoint. What has been, what's your observation, I guess, of the industry coming in? Now it's been 5 years, working in the space. You've gotten to kind of see a little bit about how ag works, food end and the ag tech end of things. So like, what's your observation as a Los Angeles outsider? Couldn't be further from the.
Couldn't be further. Me and my deep ag commodity experience Yeah. So it's funny. Whenever I'm at a dinner in Los Angeles or whatnot, and I'm talking, when I first started working at Noble West, I was talking with some friends and they're like, you're working in ag. And they paint this picture of, I think what they thought initially is there's a guy in flannel in a field. Mm-hmm. And that is like, I'm not saying, I had a little bit more background. Like I've always cared very deeply about our food system and where it comes from and how it's made and understanding sort of the nuances of organic and regenerative. So I came with like a little bit better than flannel in a field. But I think outside looking in, and when you think more broadly about the challenges that the food system is facing in general, is that it just thinks about ag as this homogenized entity. Everyone's like, there's a farmer and then it's in the grocery store. And it's like, there's so many steps in between, so many deeply intentional, really well thought out, definitely could be slightly more efficient, but I understand, people that are holding up our entire livelihoods here. And that's probably the biggest observation, is that this is the most humble category I've ever worked in. It is astounding to me, the gravitas and amount of people and thought that is going into every single client that we work with across the value chain's work and effort. And the fact that we don't know about it,
Mm-hmm.
as well as intentionally as we should, that we don't understand that sometimes there's a broker or there's a salesperson or there's a processor, and that there's six different kinds of lines and equipment. And do you know what the difference between something being handpicked or robot picked, or just a harvester going? Like, no one gets any of that. And so the idea that when someone gets to, my favorite game in a grocery store is, how much do you think this should cost? And how much of this piece of produce do you think goes to the farmer? Everyone assumes 70% of it. And, what I know is that, like, that just gets chopped across the value chain. It's crazy to me. And I try to liken it, to bring it kind of all the way back, that whenever someone's like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize. And I'm like, yeah, I know. Like, don't get me on this soapbox because I'll be here for a while. Is that, well, you don't think when someone tells you you work in sports that they're on the Lakers. Like, that there's more to that. You're smarter than that. So I think some of it is, outsider looking in, is that I have such urgency around what I see and the challenges that our farmers are facing. And honestly, that there's a lot of good faith makers in the food system across equipment and processing and ag tech that are trying to make that easier. But, a lot of where Noble West sits at is that getting those connections, no one has time to really fully build the bridge across the river. We're getting sort of like halfway there, and then we fill it out with like an extra stone in the pond. Lots of metaphors and visuals here. And so Noble West tries to just make sure that we're really bridging those gaps. And I think for me, outside looking in, is just, I didn't understand how complex it was, truly. And I'm smart, and I came in understanding that there had to be more than just the flannel in the field to get to my grocery store. But I've just grown such this deep appreciation for all of these people, and livelihoods that are looking to do right by a system that I honestly don't think has obviously done right by them, for the entire time. So.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for taking the time to actually get to know the industry, not just work in the space and try to do a job within it, but gain an appreciation for the work that
Yeah.
goes on to put avocados in the grocery store, to put meat in the coolers, right, and in the pantry, the food in the pantries, and so on and so forth. So that's really good, and appreciate you doing like just the deep dive on that
Yeah.
for the show. Now, when I want to get back over to this clarity thing. But the one thing that is coming through though as you're talking about this is I would just wonder, like, is it is it so easy for people to get food that there just almost can't be an appreciation for how the food got there,
Oh, yeah. I
right?
think that we've made it too easy
Mm-hmm.
for someone. I mean, look, everything's a little easy right now, right? And that's
Mm-hmm.
contributing to a whole slew of things. Again, if we take a step back, it's like no one has to work anymore. And I feel like, because I think consumers, the right consumers, and we have, we've done some studies, and we read, if you read the research, consumers are interested in this information. And you have a couple of good faith actors that are trying to understand it more. I think that oftentimes, some of the efforts to understand what I would characterize as nuance, but what some people would characterize as like fringe dynamics, like when you think about regenerative, or when you think about organic, or when you think about conventional, or whether you're doing domestic or international sourcing, like that commentary is often sidelined in favor of pricing. And that, at the end of the day, is truly what nearly every conversation we have with our clients comes down to. So much of what we do at Noble West, and what my mission personally is every client, there needs to be a why for you existing. Most clients understand the who they are, the what they do, that even the how they do it. I don't think they can all articulate that very well, but they should. Most of them get that. But the margins for any business are in the why. So are you doing it to, like, why you're creating this new product that maybe comes and you can roast it easily? Well, the why of that is not because you invested in equipment and you want to make a quick buck. The why of that is you want to solve the problem of a young mom.
Mm-hmm.
And people will pay more for time back, but they're not going to pay more for a business. And so, to this notion of ease, and have we made it too easy? Yeah, we've made it too easy, but there's ways to get around that with good storytelling. Because the one thing that hasn't changed is people still like to be entertained or intrigued or educated.
Mm-hmm. So is it okay? So let's just go back to solving that little problem, right?
Yeah.
Which seems so far removed from the things that maybe we think are important, which is what goes into producing whatever the product was,
Mhm. Whichever
and
it is.
whatever it is, right? But like what the consumer is thinking about is, does this food product in the way that I get to prepare it, does that save me time?
Yeah. Does it save me time? Does it make my life easier? Is it nutritious?
Hmm.
There's the very common denominators when it comes to like people choosing their food. And we know that more often than not, mothers are typically the shoppers for the family, or women are the shoppers for the family. And that's an overgeneralized statement. We continue to see studies that come out and, reaffirm that. And when whether you're shopping for yourself or a family, this resurgence of the caring of wellness and nutrition, regardless of where you are in the country, is still growing and will continue to grow. I anticipate over the next, you know, 10 to 20 years, I think. When it comes down to it, pricing is always number one. But pricing can shift around depending on other things like, does it make my life easier? And does it add more value to me nutritiously or in my added value? That's why that's why brands exist. Otherwise, we would all buy private label shoes. We would buy private label hotel rooms. We would do all of that if brands didn't work. But brands do work when they get the storytelling right and when they get the value proposition right. And very rarely is the value proposition around what the product is. It is about what it means to the end consumer. And now, in the vein of like our B2C customers, that should translate to, is it more nutritious? Is it saving me time? But even when it comes to our B2B consumers, it needs to translate into time saved or labor saved or, administrative burden relieved. And there's features abound across a number of the clients that we work with in ag tech or processing that have that. But it's like, again, it's like taking it a little bit a step further, finding those little, what we would call power claims, like quantitative things you can stand on to substantiate your why, to substantiate why it makes a difference. And it takes time,
Hmm.
which the other thing I learned about this industry is everyone is wearing 12 different hats. Everyone I speak to, we try to make it the best meeting of the day because before this, they were probably in a plant meeting. And after it, they're probably going to run payroll or something. So everyone's busy. So
Yeah,
we try to make it easier, push the
yeah,
easy button.
and that is true. I mean, even if you don't have to wear that many hats, even
Yeah,
if you just got one hat, like that one hat sometimes turns into a many colored hat, right? And there's just a lot of different aspects of how we go about doing our day, and so there's not a lot of time to sit down and think through a marketing message or think through how we are clearly differentiating this product versus other like or potentially like products in the marketplace. And so clarity is there. Now, by the way, the reason I'm really just lasering in on clarity today is because it's also a big leadership lesson, right? From an intentional leadership standpoint. So the more clear we are on everything inside our organization, from who we are to why we exist to what we're doing and what the strategy is, and we have everybody knowing that and able to
Mhm.
regurgitate that back to me, everybody on my team would be able to tell you right now, like what our 3-year revenue goal is and why,
Yeah,
right? Like why? Because I talk about it all the time, so that everybody's super clear. And like when I decide to come, and it's a big goal, so when I come up with some new ideas and new tactics, and we start to roll out some new initiatives, well, nobody's
exactly.
surprised. Everybody's super clear on where we're gonna be, right? 3 years from today, 36 months from now. So that's an important piece. Now, I want to just let's um, how from as an agency, how
Sure.
do you take somebody who's like me, wearing all the hats, doing all the things, so well intentioned, because we're all no I've never met anybody in ag who is ill intended,
Mm-mm.
right? We just want to do a good job, and we just want to get our products sold, we want to get it to market, we want to be
Mhm.
profitable so we can come back and do it again next year. How do you take us from where we are here to here's a clear brand positioning statement, marketing message, go to market?
I mean, functionally, you drink from a fire hose for a little bit. You have to intake everything.
Yeah.
This is one of the most, it's like, it's such a, for being sort of one of the oldest economies in the history of personhood on the face of the planet, it's not a very well papered one. It's not like in any other industry where you could go chat GPT the background and history of something because so much of it lives in the heads of the people that we're working on and it's passed down and there's like inherent learning that just isn't memorialized in a lot of places. So we do a lot of asking good questions, a lot of asking dumb questions, like to make sure we understand. I'm 5 years into this, and I don't think I'm even remotely close to being an expert. But I'm really good at asking questions, and I'm really comfortable feeling dumb in a room. I'm trying to get better at that. Being the least knowledgeable person.
And I'm still asking the questions.
We
I
should all be curious all the time. Truthfully, if I ever feel comfortable, like I need to go home, metaphorically and physically. Um, but I think a lot of it is about memorialization. I talk a lot about memorializing a plan, and I talk a lot about getting the reps in from a consistency standpoint. And honestly, it's been a challenge that I've had to. I am allergic to micromanagement. I love to be autonomous. I love to do my own thing. As I think anyone that's in a lot of folks in leadership positions, they got there by their own sheer will. And what I've had to learn as I'm, trying to galvanize a team and galvanize even other leaders in other organizations is repetition matters. Getting the reps in matters. And so if you've set out and you've learned what you've learned, and you're crafting something that you mutually agree on as sort of the North Star for your organization, and that's the path, then you have to remind everyone every outset that you have that. And yeah, go ahead.
It's like a stump speech, right?
Yep.
So you hear a politician speak in one town at 8 o'clock in the morning, and you follow them throughout the day. You're going to roughly get the same talking points in roughly the same order. And that's what's going to be on the news headline tonight. And they just beat that drum until there's something new that they're adding to their platform.
I think you're totally right.
Right. I'm trying to put it into a context that a lay person, a non-marketing.
No, of course. It's just like you said, it's repetition, and it's saying the same thing and being comfortable and knowing that, because that's, I think, how it sounds like how you've been able to do that with your teams. I mean, I've listened to a lot of these episodes, and you've got your own set of clarity and goals. And I think that there's an expectation for when people come to chat with you about it's the intentional question, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's super interesting over time how much more prepared people have showed up.
Yeah.
It's like, well, if you're around after 200 episodes, people must be paying attention, or else this guy likes to make content that nobody watches or listens to. But it it's actually curated a better conversation
Totally
over time for me, which I'm the only one who's been here for all of them, and so that part of it, maybe I'm getting better at interviewing. I think so. Then back
well, there's a bit of pressure that comes with it, right? When you galvanize around something that you're doing, and you're giving it a name, and you're giving it this energy and time, and you're repeating it, it has power now. So this question of what does it mean to be intentional, I'd argue is your thing to define now in this, and you've done a good job of doing all of that. So kudos to you on that.
Yeah. And so to tie that into this lesson on clarity, I could have called it the Ag Leadership Podcast, and nobody would have thought anything different. And we would have just probably could have done exactly the same thing. But intentionally, right, I decided to focus on intentional leadership. Why? Well, because that thing, right? So Mark Jewell eventually over some time will be synonymous with intentional leadership. You should just, you will know that over time. That's my stump speech.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Guess what? There's a keynote coming that goes along with this. Guess what?
Exactly.
That's going along with this. Guess what? Right? There's a whole series over time of services and products and things that we'll get to, and it all ties into and pushes traffic back to our primary business model.
Exactly. Well, you've done an incredible job at just sort of advocating and creating that synonymousness with intentionality. And honestly, that's one of the key things that I think, and I know you teach this, so I'm advertising for Mark, is that if you are a leader, you have to know what you stand for, and everyone around you should know what it means to interact with you. And when they know that, then it makes it so the interactions are easier. And sure, there's pressure that comes with it. But if you understand what you stand for as a person, what you want to stand for, then it makes everyone else, and you can emulate that clearly with clarity, urgency, and care. Then it makes it really easy to figure out how to move throughout a business, or whether that's internally with a team or externally with clients or colleagues.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. Do you guys get into that level of detail with clients where you're actually helping leaders sort of curate their messages?
Yeah.
And so if they're going out speaking on behalf of the company, that they've got that locked in?
Yeah. I mean, even to the point of to bring the slider thing back a little bit, that is so for we also try to think about tone words for any of the thing, and that, for any of our brands that we work with, our companies, and those, emulate into, are you more extroverted or introverted? Are you a challenger or are you here to nurture? There's a lot of different decisions that brands and people make and how they show up. And I think when it comes to any sort of brand positioning, has to emulate the people that it represents, right? Most of the thing about working in ad that I've noticed is that it is a sum of its parts. It's very much a sum of the people that have created these products, these brands, these services and offerings. And so it has to be inherently them. And so everything we do, we need to make sure that the person, that whether that's the CEO or the VP or the president or whomever, the board, understands and it feels like something they can say too. So I think that that's one of those important things that we do, is whether that's positioning or messaging, it's like, can you parrot that back to me and not have it feel like one of those like tongue twisters coming out of your mouth? Does it feel authentic to you to say that? Because we try to become experts on our clients as quickly as we can, but I don't ever claim that we're going to know them better than they know themselves.
Yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful. When somebody comes at you with a big pile of confusing messaging and maybe some conflicting products in the pile, and they want to more, and they're like, hey, like, just help us sell this stuff, help us
Oh
resonate,
my,
help us lead generate, whatever the case may be. Like, where do you start? How do you create clarity for clients that,
yeah.
and by the way, like, chief sinner when it comes to this, like, we just, like, we've got a whole pile of great, like, we have so many programs, we have so many videos, so
Mm-hmm.
many things that we could teach,
Yeah.
right? And we finally, like, but we don't, like, we're coming up with a business model even now that's evolving as the industry evolves, as AI evolves, because
Yeah.
AI is coming for the coaching industry.
Yep.
And so we just built an AI coach based off of everything that
You
we've
have to
done.
compare notes on our AI agents, Mark. They can go to war together.
So we're like, hey, you know what? Guess what? AI is coming for the coaching space. It's gonna, like, a lot of stuff that you would normally, pay top dollar for from a human to human coaching aspect, for, is going to become more deflationary, because a
Yeah.
lot of that knowledge you can just go in and chat GPT, right?
Sure.
Um, so we've taken all of our proprietary stuff, put that into something called Jericho, which is for we don't have the messaging down on this yet, but basically it's an AI, an AI career coach that
Wow.
creates hyper personalized growth plans for all of your employees.
Mark, that's incredible. I know this is a little, that's incredible. What a good, you're ahead of the curve there. You have to know that.
Right. Well, and but here's why, right? Because, like, we've got this whole, like, pile of great products that we know that we can sell, but if it's coming for an aspect of it, right, we have
Mhm.
to. So, to bring this back to clarity, like, we had a whole we got a whole bunch of stuff, but, like, how do you get the messaging out to, like, get people to buy into
Yeah.
your thing, right? And
Yep.
so that's where we're going with that. I'd be
Yeah.
curious on your take, like, how do we work through the great pile of products that we have and get more people to know about them?
Well, I'll tell you this. I mean, there is no amount, there's one like trick that I'll share, but
Mhm.
some of it you have to do the homework, right? But we've had clients that have no sort of background. They're just like, I just know I have this thing. And so here's like, my notes doc or my this or my that. And some clients have 40, 200-page decks that they want to share about, and whether that you're dealing in a currency of like low information or high information, nothing replaces like putting a founder or a leader on the spot and saying, like, you've got 20 seconds to sell me on this. Like, what are the things that are top of mind for you? And like, I can find out very quickly, like, where their heart is in it. And honestly, like, what problem they were looking to solve. And so regardless of like how much information that we can find, and we do, we have like rigorous discovery sessions and all that stuff is boring and ancillary to the whole conversation around, like, if I have to put you on the spot right now to save your business, what is it? Like, what do you do? And and I think that most founders and leaders can get to that. They can get to that pretty easily. It's never in 20 seconds. No one can ever do it in 20 seconds. I don't think I could do it in 20 seconds. But they get to this point of like, and when a human talks, like, you're talking about changing the lives of leaders and helping them get clarity. Those are human emotions and human things and human currency versus what I'm sure is in your decks, which is like, and in our decks too, lists of things we do. But when you talk to someone, and so like anytime, nothing replaces just sort of like an on the spot and a good question of, you have 20 seconds with me. What is it? And I always start it that way in any discovery session that we have. And, one of my superpowers is people like to tell me things. So that helps too.
Well, whatever you have to do to peel through the layers
Mm-hmm.
to help someone get there. It's really really essential, right? And we have a method that we use whereby it took a while to get there, but like, so what's the one word problem that your company
Yeah.
solves for? What's the
Yep.
one word? Like one word. Boil it down to? What is the one? And then like beyond that, what's the one word cause?
Yep. The
And that
problem.
Yeah, and that was the beginning for me from a personal branding perspective. It was the one word problem that I solve for. You may not hear it all the time on the show, but it's resentment.
Huge.
I woke up at one point
Huge.
in my life in my career, and I didn't like who I was. I didn't like where I was at. And so, as a leadership training company, what we're trying to do is help the leaders, the ones that I'm working with personally on a one-on-one basis or in our coaching groups or whatever. Like I did what in intention is the solution. And that's why I say like all the times in life I've become the most resentful of my situation are always because of the times in life I was the least intentional,
Mm-hmm.
right? So
No.
intention is the solution for resentment. That's why it's
Yep.
the Intentional Agribusiness Leader podcast. So and why do we need to be intentional? Because we don't want to wake up in a world where we resent our career, we resent our employees, we resent our situation, or even the industry that we work in. Unfortunately, it's much more common than you think. And that's the problem that we're solving for is actually resentment. That's why this show is called what it is.
Well, and I bet you went through a couple iterations to get there, right? Because the other thing, I'm sure intentional is a word that was amongst a sea
Yes.
of other words that were crossed out.
For me to get there.
Well, and I think the other thing that that is important is like for leaders and even anyone, and everyone's a leader in their own right in some ways, you have to have discernment. You have to know when you're there or not. And I think a lot of times in a world where everyone's tired, I don't know a single person that's looked at me that says, I'm so well rested. Everyone's tired. Everyone has a million competing priorities, but you still, if you cannot, like the number of times I've looked at a client or a team and just been like, it's not there yet. I can help us get there, but you have to be willing to know and voice that it's with clarity that it's not there. It's not it yet. Everything we do is so urgent. It's all important. It's about business transformation. So it has to be right. So put in the time, get in the reps to get it right. And then everything else is easy,
Yeah.
she says in air quotes.
Well, I think when you build the good foundation,
Yes.
right, behind your messaging, behind your branding, behind your marketing, and that flows from a consistent thing. So you'll find nothing in the Momentum Company that is not designed around solving for friction in
Yep.
some way. So the Mark Jewell brand is about solving for resentment, but the Momentum Company brand is about solving for friction. Right.
Yeah.
My wife has her own personal brand. She has her own book, right? The Christine Jewell brand, and you got the Mark Jewell brand. And we both speak and we both go on podcasts and we both write and make content. And we're both speaking to our unique audiences, but everything flows into the Momentum Company.
It's all smart. It sounds like you got the reps in and you had to like get through a bunch of iterations. And then you probably had some shower thoughts too.
I'm just trying to back up what you say, because if you're trying to get this for your business and you haven't sat down and actually done the intentional work
Yep.
to think through, okay, who are we? What are we really about? What's the problem that we solve? Why do we really exist? What's the solution for all of that? And like within that is your uniqueness, right? And
Exactly.
so without that, like it's very hard even for us to come in and do good sales training or help
Mhm.
uplevel your performance management in the company, because it becomes very wishy-washy. And when the next squeeze comes,
Yep.
right, you tend to shift and go into another space, and then we lose all the work.
Totally. You teams can navigate, we talk about change being the only constant a lot on our team. And, I used to go through a period of time where, okay, like I'm going to try to like mitigate the change and make it not impact the team as much and do all those things. And that's probably one of the biggest things I had to learn as a leader is like the change is going to happen. letting them learn how to navigate through it, as long as they know that we're all marching towards a singular goal and that we can all do that, they can get through it. The team can get through it. But protecting from it and hiding some of the information and trying to that's stuff that just doesn't work. So the clarity, if you have the foundation, you've built all of that, then you can navigate the crazy waters that are coming for all of us, right? So build the foundation, have the goals, have the intention around setting those, get the reps in on making sure everyone knows, and we solve the world's problems, right?
There we go. I think it's nice and easy, nice and easy. No, it's not, but it is necessary. Sarah, this has been a really fun and vibrant and fast conversation. Do you have a book rec to close us down?
Boy,
Anything
do
you?
I ever. Radical Candor. I read that book
Mhm.
every year because I get something different from it every year. And one of the reasons I'm sure that you and no one that listens to this will be like, wow, she's shy. She has no problem. She has a hard time articulating what she thinks. But I think what that book teaches is this notion, and I would argue that the art of discourse is lost in a lot of ways. We love to hide behind our phones. We love to hide behind an email or a Slack. And there is nothing that replaces really good communication. Good communication solves, I think, the vast majority of our problems. And I'm not just saying that because it's my business. But radical candor is around this notion that you should be able to be candid and honest with people. It's the Mel Robbins clear as kind before all of that. And I think that all of that is important. And so it's my favorite book because some years I'm learning I need to be more radical. And some years I'm learning, okay, Sarah, you've got to be a little bit more candid in this, and because we change as people, but radical candor.
Beautiful. Great recommendation. Great interview. Guys, go check out Noble West. They're doing good things in the agriculture industry, helping food processors, ag tech. I mean, they're covering the full gamut on that end. They're out in California. And man,
Thanks,
thanks for
Mark.
sharing.
This was great.